Chapter 17, Mara's Price. The Warren packed its whole world in a night and a day. It was a smaller world than it deserved, and that was what made the packing terrible to watch. 40 lives, and the sum of them went into bundles a doe could carry. The iron pot, the good needles, the tallow molds, the seed moss in its damp wraps, Aught's book in its oilcloth, like a relic going to war. The kits thought it was a festival. The elders packed like people having teeth pulled. Wren folded her shelf blanket 4 times and finally stood holding it in the middle of the row, lost, until Dre of the mill-race line took one end without a word and made it a two-doe job. And that was that. Ben ran the sick row triage. Who walked, who rode the litters, whose dosings needed doubling for a 2-watch trek through wet stone. Granny Sorrel countermanded a third of his decisions on principle and was right about 2. Scab's manifest grew hourly. Names, bundles, spears, litters, the marching order and tally code down the margin. And Fen sat beside him as he worked and watched, and then, in the middle of the 3rd recount, reached over and took the chalk out of her brother's hand. She corrected his count. 2 strokes, precise as sutures. The kobold kits entered once as passengers, who had informed Nib at great length in their new pigeon that they would walk. Then she put the chalk back in Scab's open hand and went back to watching. The tally keeper of Grey Mara's Warren sat looking at his slate for a long time, and when he resumed, his tallies came out slightly crooked, because a man's hand will do that when it learns his sister is still in there, keeping the count. Mara sent for Ben in the dead hour, when the packing was done, and the Warren slept its last sleep behind the wall that wasn't. He found her burrow stripped to stone, 60 years of tenancy, and it had all gone into one bundle and one basket, except the ledger. The iron-bound book that was never open lay on the table between the tallow dip and her folded paws, and Ben understood, with a bedside certainty, that he had been summoned to a disclosure. He sat, he waited. The old rule, they say it when the room's ready, and not one breath before.
You'll hear it as a story first,
Grey Mara said, ash voice from the first word.
because that's the only door it fits through anymore. There was a doe of the mill-race line. Oh, sit still, Mender. You've met Dre. You knew some of this shape already. I watched you know it. There was a doe, twice culled before her 20th year. First the pit cull, that took her dam, then the fire cull, that took the rest, and the second time she stood in the smoke holding a kit that wasn't hers, and made the arithmetic every survivor makes, never again at any price. She built a warren behind a false wall. She learned every law and made the ones she couldn't find, and for 40 years, Mender, it worked. And if the story ended there, they'd carve her on a post.
The tallow dip fluttered. Mara's clouded eyes never left the closed book.
11 years ago, the catchers came into the deep lines with the elder Vance. The father, worse than the son at least counts what he spends. And it was a hungry year, and the wire was everywhere, and my scouts brought me a choice. The mill-race line, what was left of it, my own blood's cousins, had denned that winter in the old race tunnels. Good tunnels, defensible, and mapped, Mender. Mapped by me, in my own paw, from my own girlhood.
A breath drawn like a splinter.
And the elder Vance's agent stood at my dead drop with a purse of gold and asked the dark in general for a route worth the season's quota. One route, any route. And if no route came, the crews would sweep the whole stratum and find everyone, because hungry catchers dig. I gave them the mill race.
The word sat in the stripped burrow like a body.
I told myself all the things you're readying to tell me, that they'd scatter in time, they were quick, they were canny, that a sweep would have taken us both, and this took only maybe, that a wall must choose what it stands in front of.
Her paw came to rest on the iron-bound cover, flat the way you'd hold down a thing that might fly open.
9 of the mill race came out of that winter, of 60. Dre was 1. She doesn't know. 60 years old, that lie of mine, in Warren count, 11 of yours. And this ledger has every name of the 51 in my hand, because a queen who buys her wall with blood should at least have the stones to keep the receipt.
Ben said nothing. Vital sight showed him her ember, and he wished it wouldn't. Banked low and steady as ever, except at the very center, where 60 years of unwitnessed arithmetic burned in a color he had no chart for.
Scab stood in my circle,
Mara said.
coin by coin, and counted his silver aloud, and I sentenced him gently, and every soul at that fire thought it was mercy.
Her eyes came up at last, clouded and terrible and dry.
It was recognition. Now. You're the Warren speaker. 4 fires walk tomorrow into a hole in the world on your word, and their queen mother has a seller's heart in her chest, and you are owed the knowing of it before you build anything on me. So do what the mender does, boy. Read the wound. Tell me what it needs.
Ben was quiet for a long moment in the strip burrow, with the book between them.
You've been trying to die well for 11 years.
He said at last. Bedside voice, the true kind, not the soft kind.
That's what the deep lines talk never says out loud. Why Grey Mara's Warren never moved deeper. Why the queen with the best walls in the stratum kept them one bad night from the smoke. You weren't guarding the Warren. You were standing where the mill race stood, waiting for the bill to find you and daring it to.
He put his paw on the iron-bound ledger beside hers.
Here's my reading. The bill doesn't die with you. It walks. 51 names don't need a martyr, Mara. They need the thing they never got. A Warren that doesn't have to sell anyone. You've been trying to pay in the wrong coin for 11 years.
The old doe's breath went out of her, long like a gate letting go of its counterweight.
And the receipt?
She said.
It goes to the fire, I suppose, and we all walk clean into the deep, forgiven and light.
No. It comes with us, and when the sump has walls and water and time, you're going to open it and read the mill race their names with Dre in the front row.
He met the clouded eyes and held them.
Law needs the fire seen. A wise woman told me that back when I was trying to hang a forager on smoke.
The silence went on for 4 breaths. Then Grey Mara laughed. One dry crack of it, awful and alive. The sound of something long ceased breaking loose. And stood and took up the ledger and pressed it into Ben's paws with both of hers, hard like a woman handing off a live coal.
Carry it down for me, Warren Speaker,
she said.
It's heavier than it looks.
Deed witnessed, she kept the receipt 60 years. He priced it true. The covenant assigns this no value. Below the bottom of the world, an old king who sold what he loved and was not offered a reading of the wound looks away from this page a while.
They moved the kits first at first watch, exactly as planned, and nothing about it went wrong. And that was somehow the hardest hour Ben had spent since the render house, walking point down the boneway, with the Warrens' entire future strung out behind him in a line of small heads and litters and lamps. Every ember in his eyes at once, reading them the way he'd once watched monitors, 12 patients deep, in a hallway with the sirens still coming. At the rear, last out by her own decree, Grey Mara stopped in the frame of the wall that wasn't, and looked back once at 60 years of tenancy, the empty shelves, the cold fire ring, the blue moss she'd seated herself going dim now the bodies and breath were leaving, and said something quietly to the stone that Ben, 20 places down the line, could not hear and did not need to. Then she turned her back on it and came down into the dark with her people. By the second junction, Nib had the kits singing a counting song. By the fourth, Dre of the mill race had the whole column singing it, in the old race tunnel key, and the boneway, which had been a threat for 9 years, carried the sound south the way its builders meant it to carry water, generously and a long, long way. Behind them, 3 junctions back, at a whistle post in the emptied territory, a careful thumb pressed something soft against the underside of a dead-drop stone and found the stone already answered. A twist of thread had been left there for him, red. Down in the moving column, Warren Speaker Ben Mercer smiled in the dark, entirely without anger, and kept walking.